And welcome everybody into another episode of the Dynasty Brews podcast. We are live right now on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can catch us on Belly Up TV, 9 a.m.s on Sundays, or on Saturdays, I'm sorry. We're actually on 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. on Sundays. Justin, welcome in, buddy. How's it going today?
It's Thursday. Another Thursday, closer to the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Thirsty Thursday, as some would say in the fantasy community.
Yeah, cheers to that. Drinking some water today because I've been feeling a little sick. But you are carrying on the name.
Are you turning into a fish now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Saltwater fish, too.
Saltwater, yeah.
Because I remember in my fisheries class, there's always you drink like a saltwater fish because saltwater fish drink way more because of all the salt.
That's awesome. Do you, I remember, well, off topic as we start the show, because that's what I'm a king of, is off topic. Are you fish growing? I know you were pretty excited to see them growing a couple weeks ago.
They actually did not make it to the final stages, but we have more promising prospects, and hopefully I will be getting video out tomorrow because tomorrow is the 8th day of them incubating. So hopefully that means that they're going to start hatching. So
okay, well,
look forward on Twitter.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I was just curious.
Oh, no worries. That was totally my mistakes. I messed up on their feeding regimens, and when they're really young, they develop like some sort of really weird intestinal problem if they're not fed routinely, like all the time. And, you know, we do it at a shop, so I can't be there 24/7. And, you know, you mess up at that point. I had them on day 8. If I had gotten the day 10, I would have seen the color that they were going to get. And I would be like, I was literally like, yes, this is going to be so awesome. Are they going to be orange? Are they going to be black and white? And then unfortunately, but
yeah, we got my kid a fish like a couple of years ago, and I am a terrible fish owner. I'll just leave it at that.
Did you get him a freshwater fish?
It was a freshwater fish. He made it about a couple months, and then we had some housing issues going back and forth between our in-laws and ours, and then he did not make it, unfortunately.
That's how I've lost a couple fish before.
Fish are very hard to actually take care of, I feel like, because you got to clean the water so often.
You really do, yeah. No, and you know, other than making this an aquarist show, let's get down to the football part of it because I could talk aquariums and exotic fish all day long.
Well, I was about out of content, so this is good.
Exactly. But anyways, we are going to get down to it because we are not like the other shows. We are not talking about rookie mock drafts or anything like that. No, we're getting into the nitty gritty of it, Justin. We are going to start talking about offseason predictions. We're going to start talking about guys that we think in startup drafts are going too high and a little too low. That's going to be our first segment of the day because at the end of the day, we all know when we're doing startup drafts, because I'm doing one right now that's going a little bit really too slow for me. And I know you've been doing a couple. We see the trends, right? There are glaring trends in each one of these startups. People are low on these players. They're letting them drop beyond their ADP. And they're going to become a steal for the person who says, okay, yeah, I'm going to cash in on such and such guy 2 rounds later than he should have been picked up.
Sometimes even like, I mean, you know, we're going to do it later. Sometimes
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Let's just edge right into it. Let's go right into it. I'm going to let you kick us off with your guys that are going a little too high in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that's going way too high for me that I just cannot understand, he had more weeks outside the top 5 than he had more weeks in the bottom 5 than he did in the top 5. And he's being drafted ahead of Dak Prescott, and he's being drafted ahead of Lamar Jackson. I got to start with Joe Burrow. I don't understand the love. I get it's a high-passing offense, but let's not act like he doesn't have an elite runner behind him in Joe Mixon. And, you know, I get he had a rough start to the season, but I don't think it's going to be all hunky-dory and they're going to just pass, you know, have these 300-yard passing games consistently like they had. You know, they were playing in the playoffs. They played the Chiefs, who have not had an elite defense at, like in any time, And then, would they put up like 16 points against the Titans, I want to say?
Yeah, it was you're talking about in the postseason, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they scored when they had to, and they put up points against the weaker people. But I mean, you're talking about a guy like Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott, two guys who get it done on the ground with their legs, are going to be more viable week in and week out than a Joe Burrow. Um, I'm a little lower than Joe Burrow than the community, but I don't see any reason why he should be drafted ahead of some of these quarterbacks that have that rushing upside and a higher base.
I mean, and here's the thing. I'm going to play devil's advocate with you just because that's pretty much what our show is. It's going back and forth. But I want to tell you, I, for the most part, agree with what you're saying. It's hard to draft somebody as a top 5 quarterback that doesn't have that rushing upside. I will say this. 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks were below 200 yards rushing, and Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady.
The
Just gonna
goat's gonna the goat's gonna goat. I mean, Stafford also is gonna be highly volatile too. Um, to finish top 5, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no. Go ahead. Go
I'll
ahead.
let you. One of the reasons why Josh Allen has done what he's done last season and gone wire to wire as QB1 is because of that rushing upside. And when you look at a
Yeah.
guy like Deshaun Watson, who's never finished outside the top 5, it's because these guys run. That's just what you're drafting these guys to do at the high end position. And so when you want to give up like 4 ones for Josh Allen, I know it sounds risky to do that, but sometimes if you're trying to just be an elite team, you just got to get elite players, and that's Deshaun Watson and that's Josh Allen in terms of fantasy football, and Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson's unfortunately having issues staying healthy, and same thing with Dak Prescott. And I don't even like Dak Prescott as like a real player, like a real NFL game changer. Sorry, going off on a tangent.
No, you're all good. You're all good. So I'm gonna go with the devil's advocate thing here. He's got all the weapons he needs right now. He's got 3 golden wide receivers. Um, I forget if they took a tight end, but that's not even my point here. My point is going to be they upgraded their offensive line. Joe Burrow was one of the most sacked quarterbacks last year. He was absolutely getting obliterated, but he was still making great decisions while under all that pressure. Now, take this and go, all right, now you have an absolute burner on the outside. You have somebody in T. Higgins who can get great or get good separation and make the catches, make the go-to guy catches. And then you got Tyler Boyd who can be the wild card. You've got a great offense built around you. Now you've just improved your weakest link. And in theory, that almost, for a lot of people, that says, all right, so now how high can this guy really go? What is the ceiling? Because he's going to have to put up points. That AFC North is one of the best divisions for defense and one of the best divisions for scoring. Look at the Ravens, what they just did. They just re-upped their defense and they just re-upped their offensive line. So they're going to be running the ball down the Bengals' throat, and they're going to have to be matching that. And then you look on, the Steelers. Steelers always come ready to play on defense. And then the Browns, one of the most underrated defenses in the league. One of those teams that really kind of just needed a quarterback to step up so they can take that next step. When I look at Joe Burrow, I do see him as a volatile top 5 quarterback, and I think the ADP is a little bit risky, but I do see the reward of having a solid, stable line and all the weapons that you said. Joe Mixon, he can also be a pass-catching running back. He's actually one of the best when he gets the ball in his hand and passes. And then you've got, Jamar Chase, lethal weapon from last year. T. Higgins, who I think is going to take such a step forward this year. I think he's going to be in that top 10, category for wide receivers this year. And then you've got Tyler Boyd, like I said, who's actually one of those guys that kind of going to be like a Tim Patrick steal at the end of a lot of drafts. A lot of people are kind of overlooking because of the first 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. I just don't view him as a top 5 asset. If you had Joe Burrow where Trey Lance was, I'd be totally fine with that. He's definitely above. He's definitely above the mediocre scale that we discussed last week. The problem is that, like I said, it's the mobility upside. If you're at pick 5, okay, I'm trading down to take Deshaun Watson or Dak Prescott. I mean, I've seen Dak Prescott going at the 202 spot in 12-man startups. So to me, you could capitalize on that value and trade down to get a Dak Prescott. And I keep seeing people say, all this other stuff, but you get the mobility base. Dallas has one of the worst defenses, and defenses are one of the most volatile things in the NFL. Outside of like Buffalo, like you look at Chicago. Remember that year Chicago went to the playoffs? They had an elite tier defense with Khalil Mack. Not a lot of pieces changed. I know Nagy left, but that defense fell off a cliff. It kind of happens every year. The Chiefs actually had a decent defense going into the playoffs the year they lost, or the year they beat San Francisco. It's just these things seem to kind of fluctuate year to year, especially on defense. So next season, what are we going to do if the Bengals have a good defense? I mean, they're probably going to pass less and they're going to run. And like you said, a lot of their teams in the division also are going to run the ball. So if the Bengals can't stop the run, then they're going to kill a lot of time and there's going to be less time to pass. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to take the quarterbacks with the upside, but I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you make fair points. It's just I think there's a lot of risk, like you said too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like I said, I started out by saying I think you're absolutely right thinking that he is a volatile number 5 quarterback right now, especially with the fact that he has absolutely zero running upside. But for the sake of time, let's move on to a next guy. I'm going to throw one at you. It's funny that you mentioned this name. I am a Trey Lance guy, but I can even recognize that he's going a little too high right now. When I look at this, I look at it and I go, okay, so you're picking Trey Lance, and I picked Trey Lance to be a top 10 quarterback, but now he's coming off the board round like 7 or 8, which is kind of getting scary to me because you're leaving guys like Deshaun Watson on the board. Sometimes you're leaving guys like Dak Prescott, like you were saying, on the board.
Now, is that a one quarterback league or is that super flex?
Super flex.
And you said he's going. Where's he going for you?
He is sometimes going around 7 or 8. Here actually
overall, right?
No. As the QB 7 or 8 and taken off.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
Actually, so if you want, I'm going to pull this up real quick. This is my latest draft that's incomplete, but it will kind of give you an idea of where it was. He is right here. This guy on the 12 and the 2.1 picked Lamar Jackson and Trey Lance. So Lamar Jackson was QB6 taken off the board. Trey Lance, QB7 taken off the board. If you can see that, Deshaun Watson goes immediately after him, followed by Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts later on down the board. It seems like you're leaving a lot of really good verified talent in Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson for the high hopes that Trey Lance is, the QB1 right away. And that's kind of where I border, because I'm like, if I know that I can get Deshaun Watson or I know I can get Russell Wilson, I think I will thoroughly pass on Trey Lance for one of those guaranteed QB1s
Would you take either one of them above Burrow?
Oh, yeah. I would take both of them above Burrow.
I agree. I'm curious. This is the standard. This isn't like, oh my gosh, what are these people doing? I don't know what happened between, aside from the lawsuits. I don't think Watson's a good person, like from what we've heard. But Murray's a little high to me, and Watson should really be right after Herbert if in our rankings. We'll have to do a ranking show, but I don't know how Watson is so far behind. I know he's probably going to get suspended, but
I think that there's still the aspect of the guy hasn't played it in almost 2 years. He missed last year, and then he's kind of been amidst this allegation thing. So it's kind of like you're going through that time period where nobody knows what you are right now. It's a mystery. It's one of those things where the Browns sold themselves down the line for a guy who, yeah, he was fantastic and probably is still pretty damn good, but you don't know what you're getting at this point because we really haven't had full contact pads. And, at some point, you're going to see is this still the Deshaun Watson that was putting on shows in Houston a couple years back? Or has he, maybe missed a step with time off? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you make a good point. I do view quarterbacking though. I view quarterbacking in a little bit different lens than like a Lev Bell, where you rely on so much, and you have to be in like tip top shape to be Lev Bell. So when he took that year off, I think that really just destroyed his career. But as far as like Watson goes, I view it a little bit differently because half of his game, he is an elite passer. He can make all the throws you need him to make on the field. I had concerns about is he going to be as fast as he was with taking a year off? But I still think that he's a top tier talent, and if I could trade down to get Deshaun Watson at that spot, that's fantastic. I've seen him go as high as 108, so it's very much he's probably the most volatile player in Superflex right now, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair enough. When you look at him going over at 203, I think that's a fantastic steal. And
Yeah.
where you said 108, like I can see him being QB5 taken off. I can't justify taking him over Allen, Mahomes, or Herbert. And really, at this point, Murray, Wilson, and Watson, and even Jackson kind of can hang in that range. They're all for me kind of like that swirling number 5, or you know what I mean? Or number 4, number 5, where I can be like, okay, I would be okay with either one of those guys. Any of them could fit into that spot. If I were to have my way, I'd probably go Murray just for the knowledge that I would have him for the first 6 games for sure, because I figure Deshaun Watson, whether he gets out of these cases unscathed or not, is going to be facing at least a 6-game suspension.
See, I used to believe that, but I'm actually of the opinion that I think they're gonna wait until more stuff happens. I think as of today, I don't think he'll be suspended. He probably should be, based on things that he's said and done. But I don't know. The NFL's weird. The NFL's weird.
Well, and the NFL does its own law system pretty much,
Yeah.
You can totally get off of charges and they'll still just put you in there just for being accused of disorderly conduct.
But then you have a Tyreek Hill where he's accused of awful things and he doesn't miss a single game. So it's incredibly insane to me.
Yeah. No, 100%. So on the Trey Lance aspects, where do you see him in the realm of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson?
My rankings have not changed. So I still have Wilson 1. I think the upside is incredibly there. Then I have Lawrence. And then I am going to stick with Trey Lance. I had Trey Lance highly rated, but we kind of bastardized that whole process, in my opinion, when he went to San Francisco. He was going like pick 8 to 12, which I felt like was fair based on the risk in his playing style and the fact that he had a limited number of games where he threw over 20 passes. But when you go 103 and you're a bad team picking that high, I did not like the cost to acquire him. And now we're just doing the same thing here. When you take a Trey Lance at 201, you're trying to sharpshoot a position that still has elite talent on the board, and like Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you wanted to just like not take a risk, take Aaron Rodgers in the 5th, and take whoever's going to be the best thing. I could go on a rant about the best thing to do in rookie drafts is trade down for rookie picks, but we'll talk about that another day. I just feel like we're trying to sharpshoot a position where there's elite talent left on the board, and we're taking my quarterback 3 out of last year's class, who still hasn't proved to me that he should be any higher. And I had Mills at 5 last year, and you could make the argument that Mills should be 3 because he's guaranteed. He's played himself into that role. He could even be number 1 if you really wanted to like make the case about who looked the best last year.
It's fair enough. Davis Mills is definitely climbing up a lot of boards at this point. Just seems to be a little bit of the hype going on there. I think a lot of people are still forgetting he's in Houston and the Texans offense, but I mean, he did have a good season. I'm not raining down hard on him. I'm just saying maybe he is justified where he is right now until he proves a little bit more.
I think he should be there, and I think that if you have him, I would be moving him. Like, I like Mills quite a bit. I liked him as a prospect coming out. I have a lot of him, but I've actually moved him because
I know because I traded you for him.
My biggest concern with him is I think that if the Niners do believe in Trey Lance, which I don't know if they do, like I just don't know. The risk I see here is if they do believe in Trey Lance, and you know, September comes, holiday weekend comes, and Jimmy Garoppolo's cut, I could see Jimmy Garoppolo walking into Houston and being the starting quarterback week 1. That's like in the realm of possibilities to me.
See, I don't see that being the realm of possibilities because I feel like even Houston knows that they have more, even if it's just, like in theoretical, like youth. Like, I think that they have more in Davis Mills than they would in Jimmy Garoppolo. At this point, Jimmy Garoppolo is just kind of a gun-shy kid who, I don't want to see a kid anymore, but a gun-shy, like, quarterback who got ruined by Kyle Shanahan. But, at the same time, his mindset going into it, when Jimmy Garoppolo first came out, sorry, I'm going to go on a rant for a second. When Jimmy Garoppolo first came out, he looked phenomenal. He looked like a leader of a football team, and then it progressively got worse to a point where he just became a shell of a man that only knew how to throw screen passes to Deebo Samuel. And that's why I kind of like been on the trail of get him out and see what we have in Trey Lance, because at least with Trey Lance, you've got somebody who can get the ball downfield. Shanahan is a master at getting people open. All you have to do is look at the tape last year where Trey succeeded downfield, and you see a bunch of Deebo Samuel being wide open downfield. Like, how do you have your best receiver wide open downfield? Because you scheme it up that way. So when I look at this, there's definitely a ton of potential there. I still think, like you said, Zach Wilson has more of the upside, and we'll get to him in a little bit because I know he's on your list for too low. But, when I see this, I go, where is the line? And that's when I come to with the taking Watson and Wilson over him, not after him.
So my line, I if we get to bonus content at the end, there's another player on this list that's drafting way too freaking high. My line would actually be, we all differ on rankings. I don't think my rankings are any better than anyone else's. I've had a lot of success. I'm very happy with how I do, and I'm proud of rankings. But, if you wanted to make the argument that, Trey Lance was your QB1 last year, the highest I would justify taking Zach Wilson based on this draft, and this is if it was just me not knowing market value of players, I would probably be taking Zach Wilson / whoever your QB1 is for the upside after Russell Wilson, because the upside is there for them to be, I think, the next elite talent. I think that Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are elite talents. I was very out on Trevor Lawrence because I was out on Urban Meyer. I have the receipts to prove it up at Dynasty Nerds, but I got a lot of heat for that article too. People were really mad about it, but they've actually agreed with me that Trevor Lawrence is going to probably rebound. I like his fit in Philadelphia. But, man, when you watch Zach Wilson, I don't know if you've watched any highlights, the dude just has the most electric arm I've ever seen. If we can just get better decision-making, I think we're looking at one of the next great quarterbacks in the league, especially with all the weapons he has.
Yeah, those weapons are definitely going to be the telltale this year. If he can't make it work this year with the amount of weapons that he has double of everything. He has triple wide receivers. He has 3 wide receivers that could be a wide receiver 1 on a Houston team. You know what I mean? Like, and then he's got 2 tight ends. He's got 2 running backs. He's got a whole offensive line that's been built around him that's kind of like built around the whole Shanahan system. So they have no excuses this year. I'm excited to see the Jets play because they really have no excuses this year. Like, they have a lot of talent up front, and they have a lot of experienced guys in the trenches. So when I look at this, I go, all right, I fully agree with you. Zach Wilson is one of the guys that should be up there with Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. For the sake of moving on, let's get to our second too high people. Who else are you too high on? Give me two names.
So yeah, the next two that I just don't understand is Mac Jones and CD Lamb. I could go on a CD Lamb rant. CD Lamb's had okay seasons, but I feel like we're just. I mean, look at CD Lamb here. CD Lamb is the 5th receiver off the board. Why on earth would you take CD Lamb ahead of Jalen Waddle? Fine. You take him ahead of Jalen Waddle. Why would you take him ahead of Deebo Samuel? Why would you take him ahead of Stephon Diggs? Why is he ahead of Devontae Adams? I don't understand. I haven't seen, any elite production. He has good games. He's an excellent wide receiver too. He's probably wide receiver 15 for me when all is said and done and I get my rankings taken care of. That just means I'm never going to own CD Lamb. I would rather have so many other players than CD Lamb. I'd take Devontae Adams. I'd take Diggs. I'd take Tyreek Hill. I'd take Deontay Johnson. I'd take Deebo. I'd even take Godwin over him. I mean, these are all players I'd love to have.
See, I'm of the other, I think the line stops with Deebo for me. I think that CD Lamb has traits that we all saw in Cooper Kupp. He's electric with his route running. They move him in and out. He works really well from the slot. He gets good separation. He really just needs to kind of find the end zone a little bit more and make more out of his targets, collect more. But when I look at CeeDee Lamb, I agree with you. He shouldn't be going over Metcalf. He shouldn't be going over Tyreek Hill, over Devontae Adams, over these proven commodities. But there is kind of like this aspect of the community getting behind him and saying, we really think that this guy is the next guy. And I can't help but see it, he does have the talent to take it to that next level. And he has the quarterback to feed him. And he has the team to kind of just, the team he's in the right division to kind of take advantage of some of those bad corners. So I look at this and I go, all right, CeeDee Lamb could have that big season. And you could justify going up and getting him if he's a my guy, right? Like we all have those guys that we're willing to jump up and grab.
To a degree, but like after week 14, here's his stats from week 14 on to end the season, or from week 14 on, 7.6 points week 14 against Washington, the Washington. 5 points against the New York Giants, 6.4 points against Washington again, 5 points against Arizona, and then 4.5 points against Philadelphia. Like we're taking that's what I'm going to spend up for. I mean, you look at a guy like Deebo freaking Samuel, who's just went bananas last year. I get we're worried about him not rushing the football next year, but I mean, they're getting him the ball, and he, CD did all of this with Amari Cooper taking pressure off of him because Cooper was the one. They had so many weapons last year that some people will say that weapons leaving is going to help him. I think it's going to hurt him. I don't. Maybe it's my Big 12 bias because I definitely have it. I don't love Big 12 players, and he's like my biggest fade of all time is CD Lamb.
Okay, all right. I can agree with that. I can see where you're coming from with that. So I'm just going to give a little reflection on that as far as Dak Prescott goes. I'm going to take the game logs from Dak Prescott from, you said week 14, right? Is where you started rattling off points. Yeah, so Dak Prescott didn't really have the best of weeks. Week 14, he goes for 211 and a touchdown. Week 15, he goes for 217 and a touchdown. Week 16, he goes bananas and goes for 330 and 4 touchdowns. Week 17, he goes for 226 and 3 touchdowns.
All these touchdowns, and there's no sign of Mr. CD.
All these touchdowns, no sign of Mr. CD Lamb. Must have been going to Cedric Wilson, and now it's in Miami. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some points to be made there. CD is one of those guys that you kind of need to see a lot more production from. And
I view
hopefully,
I view CD almost identically as I view DJ Moore, but CD doesn't. CD, DJ Moore at least gets a pass because who was freaking throwing him the ball.
right,
Like CD, I have no excuses for.
right, and this is gonna be a make or break year for CD because he has now got all the attention on him. He's the number one, undeniable. He's the guy there. No more Amari Cooper. Yeah,
I won't even have Mr. Gallup for a couple of games.
exactly. Well, he'll have Mr. Tolbert, so maybe that's a sign. Maybe we should all draft Jalen Tolbert now.
I think he didn't make my list, but I think actually we're going to see heavy doses of Zeke to start the year next year.
Yeah, I would. He was one of my guys I was really preaching for going into this draft. I thought he was a pretty electric talent coming out of South Alabama. So for me, I want to talk about a guy who got some talent this offseason, but I'm still not fully convinced on. Where are you talking about Jalen Hurts in these drafts? Where are you thinking he should be going?
I just don't view drafting a backup quarterback with your second pick to be a wise choice. That's kind of where I'm at with this. I think we've seen the ceiling of Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's a pro-level NFL passer, and that's kind of what the position demands of you is to be a passer. I think we talked about it a couple times since draft night. I fully expect, when I do my projections, I will have Jalen Hurts playing 12 games. Sorry to Philadelphia fans. I think they're going to be out of the playoffs by week 12. And what we will see is them exploring other options, whether that be, Minshew Mania or Mr. Carson Strong. What do they have in Carson Strong? Like I said, it's an interesting concept when your backup quarterbacks don't play a similar brand of football to you. They're kind of telling us what they want their quarterbacks to do with Carson Strong and Jalen and Minshew Mania.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this today because I was answering somebody on Twitter about the prospects of Tua or the prospects of Jalen Hurts, and I compared it to Tua. I was thinking when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about, kind of like Jimmy Garoppolo type of thing. You can have this average talent quarterback and you're giving him all these weapons, but it doesn't mean that he's going to get any better. And it's kind of how I look at Tua right now with Tyreek Hill, Hurts with A.J. Brown. Like, if there's not really that much there to begin with, why are we going so overboard with going to get these guys when they get a talent? It doesn't mean the talent's going to succeed. It doesn't mean they're going to succeed because they have a talent there.
I mean, the best argument you could make for that is look at Houston. How many years was DeAndre Hopkins putting up ridiculous numbers with the likes of Brock Osweiler or whoever the hell they had at quarterback? Like, just because you have elite players on the outside doesn't make your quarterback any better. So I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. And one thing that's like, we got two mouths to feed in both spots. And Jalen Hurts and Tua proved that they really couldn't even feed one mouth. Obviously Tua had to force feed Jalen Waddle, but he had Mike Gesicki, and Mike Gesicki didn't have that great of a year.
Yeah.
Over Devonta Smith came in with so much hype, but he didn't have that great of a year. Hurts was getting garbage time points that was really feeding into his fantasy scores more than anything else.
Oh, yeah, I remember. I mean, how many times were you watching games and you were like, oh, man, this is like unwatchable. And so you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and you're like, what the hell? How did he score 40 points? He couldn't even complete a pass.
Exactly. You'd be like, what happened? Oh, they scored 2 rushing touchdowns?
Like, I legitimately went to bed up by like 50 points one night. And I woke up and I'm like, I won by 10. Like, I would have been like crapping my pants if I had stayed up to watch the end of the game.
That's Jalen Hurts and the Eagles for you, man. And it's a shame because it means that you can't draft Eagles running backs too, because he's just the guy. He's the goal line gobbler.
Oh,
he's the guy
You also can't draft Eagles running backs just because. I mean, who are you draft? What are your options?
Boston Scott.
Boston Scott sits on my roster, and he's literally like the guy that I don't know how to equate it to, but like you go through the season, and you're like, I don't think I'm going to cut Boston Scott. And you don't cut him, you find someone else to cut. And like by week 12, you're like, my entire roster is just damaged. I guess I'm starting Boston Scott, and then somehow, the week that I start him, he scores like twice.
I had one guy that I gave championship week 17 advice to. I said, start Boston Scott. He's gonna give you some points. And I remember he came to me and he said, thank you so much for convincing me to start Boston Scott because I won my championship because of it. Because he was having a bad game too. I think he was like at 60 yards, but then he scored a touchdown and equated him up to 14.
I think he scored 1 or 2, didn't he?
Yeah, he might have. Yeah,
because I remember like Boston Scott is better than we think he is. I mean, he's not like great, but he's really good bottom of your roster guy to have. Like, I'll typically take him with my last pick, and he's won me a championship. He won me a championship, or he got me to the finals in 2020 with I took over. My friend and we took over an orphan team, like just a terrible team. And what ended up happening is we just we went on a run and we made the finals. It happens when you're active on the waiver wire.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, listen, how many people won 2 years ago because they got Cam Akers right before the Rams started their playoff run? How many people won last year because they got Elijah Mitchell? 2 years ago because they got Jeff Wilson for that 3-game spurt at the end. You know what I mean?
Or Philip Lindsay, when he had his season.
Or Philip Lindsay, yeah, another great person that didn't get drafted, was a waiver wire pickup. Next thing you know, you're getting great seasons out of these guys. But there was one guy we didn't talk about that you said, why too high? Why do you think the community is too high on Mac Jones?
So where did he go in this draft? To me,
he actually went pretty late. I think he went at the 6-6.
He went the 6-6. Okay, so
yeah.
Where I was seeing, and maybe this is because of who I am, I just feel like people are a little bit higher on him than they should be. He's okay, but let me see where he went. Let me look at this most recent data I have. Mr. Mac Jones was drafted ahead of Derek Carr. So he was drafted 5-7, ahead of Derek Carr.
Now, was this before the Devontae trade?
Yes. No, this was after. It
was after. Okay. So
these are quarterbacks that were drafted after Mac Jones. Now, maybe this is just, so the next 5 quarterbacks off the board, or I'll go 7. Here's the next 7 quarterbacks off the board. Derek Carr. I would take Derek Carr over Mac Jones. Kenny Pickett. I will take Kenny Pickett over Mac Jones. We can have that discussion in a second if you want to. I wouldn't take Tua over him. I would take Cousins over him. I would take Mr. Wilson, Zach Wilson over him. I'd take Tannehill and I'd take Brady over him. And of course, my favorite quarterback that no one wants to respect, I would take Carson Wentz over Mr. Mac Jones.
Yeah. That's funny that you talk about Pickett, because Pickett was literally the next quarterback taken in this draft. He was taken at 6'9". Mr. Carson Wentz was taken at 7'10". I think that for dynasty purposes, a lot of people take into consideration that Carson Wentz he's on the shortest leash he's ever been on before. And they really don't know if his career is going to be over after this season, because Ron Rivera is one of the old-fashioned guys that's literally no nonsense. And I mean, from reports, I guess he's been, I don't want to say a shit disturber, but just not a absolute leader that everybody thought he would be.
I mean, I just don't get how they're taking, Kirk Cousins has Justin Jefferson, right? He's got Dalvin Cook and Madison.
Thielen.
Thielen. Thielen's good. He used to be like great. I mean, let me point out, Mac Jones doesn't even have an offensive coordinator. I will say, I don't understand how Antonio Gibson was drafted before Mac Jones. That's one guy I don't understand.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson, another guy who has a lot of question marks going into the season after the draft. I'll say this about Mac Jones. It's interesting looking at your draft and looking at my draft or listening to your draft and looking at my draft, because I would have never imagined that somebody would pick Zach Wilson after Mac Jones, because Zach Wilson is this absolute through the roof ceiling player he's the epitome of boom bust, right? He could absolutely be like the next big thing, or he could be, gone next year. But that's the type of pick that you make for, an earlier round. You don't make the floor player your pick over the ceiling player most of the time. And I think that's just
your floor player is the guy that you're like, ah, crap, I waited too long. I guess I'm just going to take this guy.
Exactly. And that was actually my plan, was to take Mac Jones afterwards so I could have Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, and Mac would be my floor player. But I missed out on that, and I got Tom Brady, which is actually a ceiling player and a floor player at the same time. So that's one of the things that kind of all the other guys I can kind of see, where you can kind of work them behind Mac Jones, but Zach Wilson's an interesting one to me. I would not put Zach Wilson after Mac Jones.
And any planet, no, it shouldn't be. But
must have been a Patriots fan.
Here we are. I don't think. Nope, he was not a Patriots fan. He's actually a Pittsburgh fan.
And he didn't pick Pickett?
I mean, I view Pickett and Jones as like the similar. I think Pickett's better, but I think in the community, I think Pickett and Jones are kind of viewed similarly inside of fantasy.
I think a Pickett is more of a Joe Burrow type guy than Mac Jones. Mac Jones is so stoic and so statuesque in the pocket, whereas Pickett actually likes to move outside. It was kind of more of what Joe Burrow was like at LSU before he fucked his knee up.
Yeah.
But let's get on to some too low guys before we end this podcast. Give me 3 guys that you're too low on, and give me a little explanation with them.
Yeah, so the guys that the community is too low on is we kind of beat the dead horse here with Zach Wilson. So he's one guy that I feel like people are too low on. He's going in the 6th round of everything I'm seeing. Just too low. I'd take him over Mac Jones. I'd take him over a lot of people. I'd take him over Fields. There, I said that. DeAndre Hopkins must have gotten hit by a car based on how the community's treating him. Yeah. So I don't know if I missed that in the reporting, but I think he's going in like the 10th round. I saw Malik freaking Willis, who might not ever play a snap as a starting quarterback, go ahead of him. And then Aaron Jones also must have just like gotten hit by a car. Aaron Jones, I could see finishing as running back 1 this season. I think he's going to get heavy volume inside the passing game without Devontae Adams there. And I know people are worried about the committee with A.J. Dillon. That's fine. Aaron Jones is a ridiculously good pass catching back. And I think we could see one final elite season at Aaron Jones. And to get him in like the 7th round is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I was so excited because that put my stable of running backs at Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, and Joe Mixon. And I was just through the roof starting the season with that, because I get what you're saying. Aaron Jones, how are you passing up on the It's weird because we always preach in the community, we preach volume is key, right? How much more volume indicators do you need than Devontae Adams being gone, and they haven't signed a legit wide receiver to play for them? I mean, are we really going to go around and think Sammy Watkins is that guy? I mean, Christian Watson has a chance, but he'll most likely be a developmental player going into it.
And I also see the community making the case for Julio Jones, which is like, are we living in 2010?
I mean, are we really going to make a case for Julio Jones at this point? Because I mean, what's he gonna do? Sign a fucking 5 year or sign a $1 million contract to pull his hamstring 3 times in the year and only step on the field twice? Like, what are we doing here?
I mean,
What are we?
if I'm Green Bay, why not call Arizona and be like, well, Hopkins is suspended 6 games. You just traded for Marquise Brown. Let's get a deal done. I mean, Hopkins would be elite for Rodgers. I don't think Hopkins is done. I think Hopkins still has another 5 years left in him.
Yeah,
Now
Hopkins.
he's not going to be 2 years ago Hopkins, but he's going to give you like 10 points a game, and to get him in the freaking 10th round is just like I I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see Hopkins leaving Arizona, but
Oh, he won't. But well, there was a report from the Athletic that said that they can cut him next year for a little to no money.
that's next year. I'm talking
Yeah.
this year.
Oh, yeah. No. I agree. I'm just saying, if I'm Green Bay, I'd at least shoot your shot like Washington did with Patrick Mahomes this offseason. Call him and see what they want. See if he's available.
Right. But you're asking Green Bay to do something that any other organization would, and that means that they're going to do the exact opposite. At this point, why haven't you brought Jarvis Landry in for a workout? Why aren't we talking about maybe Will Fuller?
Will Fuller, yes.
At the end of
Jarvis,
the day, Jarvis just profiles as a better Randall Cobb.
I don't want anything to do with that. Everyone's talking that dude up. I mean, at the end of the day, they should have been calling about freaking Brandon Cooks. I don't even like Kadarius Toney, but they should be calling about Kadarius Toney. They should even be calling about Calvin Ridley.
They should have rang New Orleans about fucking Michael Thomas.
Well, he has hurdles to play apparently. So, where'd he go in this? I'm curious because
he went pretty late.
I mean, with the report of him facing hurdles, he's going to be on my list of being too low on.
He went 9-7.
I mean, I'd like to see him go in the 10th, but
yeah, so did I. I wanted to see him go.
That's a steal based on the upside. I mean, I don't buy the report of the fact that he still has hurdles. I think they're trying to set expectations. It is interesting though, the way they drafted. Their first round pick profile is better in the Thomas role than the Callaway role.
I mean, all signs are indicating towards Michael Thomas being the Ben Simmons of the NFL.
Everyone needs a Ben Simmons, man.
But anyways, let me get my two low players out there. I'm going to start off with Jared Goff. I got him pretty much as the last quarterback. I think that we might be going a little too far with this thing. Jared Goff is still a good quarterback. He still has a contract to fulfill in Detroit. Detroit didn't make an effort to grab a quarterback that would threaten him this year. He's the guy. They're going to move forward with him this year at least. If I can get him as my third quarterback or even, a QB2 in a 2 QB leagues, I'm not worried about it. I'm not mad about it. Because if I can load up on every other position and know that Jared Goff can give me a consistent 15, sometimes 20 points, especially with this elite offensive line growing in Detroit, and they have weapons like Swift, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, they'll get Jameson Williams halfway through the season. Hawkinson is there. They've got a lot going for them, and I'm looking at this as a year that Detroit can really capitalize on making strides in the NFC North. The Packers are depleted. The Vikings have loaded up, and the Bears are they're the new Lions of the NFC North.
Yeah,
so I see this as a stepping stone year for them, and I think Jared Goff is going to be one of those guys that really takes kind of like maybe even a Rams Jared Goff. He's going to have like a flashback year to when he was decently good for fantasy in the Rams uniform.
Yeah, I think he could. I think he could bounce back. I don't know about that good, but yeah.
So my next guy is Rashad Bateman. Shout out to David Gautieri. Rashad Bateman, I love the talent. I thought he was fantastic coming out of Minnesota. He's got no competition now. Marquise Brown is gone.
James Prochet.
James Prochet. There it is. Devin Duvernay.
He does have Andrews. Andrews is still my tight end one. But yeah, no, I agree. Bateman's.
That no, and great point. That actually validates Mark Andrews as tight end one, right?
Yeah.
Like, Rashad Bateman is one of those guys that I think is still on the board in this league, and he'll probably be taken in the later rounds, maybe even 13, 14 rounds. It's kind of like we were talking about before with Kenny Golladay. If you can get a wide receiver one in the 14th, 15th round, what's stopping you? Why would you do that? Why would you not take him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, or even Calvin Ridley at 11-11's pretty good value too.
Yeah, I mean, see, I don't bank on guys that,
We were just talking about Michael
are out for a
Thomas.
whole year.
We were just talking about Michael Thomas, my man.
Yeah, but I didn't pick him.
But you would have thought about it in the 10th, you said. So what's the difference between him and Calvin Ridley?
Well, Calvin Ridley, I know is not going to be on the field for 2022.
Has he appealed that yet, though? That's kind
I
of where I'm
don't think
at.
he has.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm wondering.
Because it's a very stupid, because he was just on Underdog. So I think it was Underdog, might have been DraftKings. He was literally just betting on games that weren't even involving the Atlanta Falcons. So
he did, I read, but he wasn't playing. So it's like how
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I don't know. I'm not condoning what he did, but it seemed a little steep. But I want to hear your next player too. Sorry.
No, you're all good. So my last player is going to be Deontay Johnson. So I don't see him going off the board at a lower point right now, but all these, everything that's coming out right now with the media, backing that this is his last year, that they might not sign him. I'm not buying any of that shit. This is a guy who is a cornerstone type of player for this wide receiver core. He pretty much embodies everything that they want. He's a hardworking guy. He gets tons of targets. He fixed his dropping problem last year. So when I look at this, I go, don't back off from Deontay Johnson. Just draft him.
Absolutely.
Don't fall. Don't let him fall. You can't, especially in PPR, you can't beat his target volume.
No. That season when Big Ben was out, when he had that injury, the Steelers went 500 or better, and there's no way that they would have done that without Deontay Johnson. I'm fully convinced, because like every single freaking pass that what's his face made, the Rudolph made, I mean, it was always to Deontay because he's always freaking open. That's how great that dude is.
Yeah,
I agree.
He's a route tactician for sure. He's one of the best in the game. And here's the thing: everybody's like, "Well, if he leaves Pittsburgh, well, then his value's gone." Well, actually, maybe that's not true at all. What if he goes to a great place?
What if he went to Arizona? What if he went to Buffalo?
What if he went to Kansas City?
Buffalo.
Yeah.
What if he went to Houston? What if he went to Houston? Houston wouldn't be terrible either, even with Mills. Like everyone makes these points that like I think that too often we assume that free agency is like a catalyst for bad things. I have the opposite. Like I will actually target players that I know who are going to be free agents like a year from now. Like I traded Cam Newton. I traded a 5 for Cam Newton last year before he went to Carolina. And then like after his first game, I traded him for Madison and MVS. And my friend's like, why those two? I'm like, well, they're both going to be free agents within the next 2 years. Now MVS, I didn't expect him to go to Kansas City, but like that's a lottery ticket to me. When they go to free agency, it's like a scratch off. Like if they go to Kansas City, it's an upgrade. If Madison goes on to be a starter, that's an upgrade. So I don't view free agency as a bad thing for anyone, really.
No, honestly, that's a great way to view it. I never really took it that far, but that's actually fantastic advice. Like targeting guys before they leave to a new spot is. Come on, it works. It works out for a lot of players too. Like think about the guy who had Michael Turner before he went to Atlanta, and then he went to Atlanta and corked off 14 touchdowns.
Think about Stephon Diggs to Buffalo. Think about I mean, Antonio Brown did good in Tampa Bay. I mean, obviously you got kind of hosed with value because of him going psycho, but
Yeah,
these receivers aren't dumb. Like, there's a reason they don't go to Baltimore. No offense to Lamar Jackson, they want to put up numbers.
they just go to
All
Miami because they want to work out there year round.
he, that's the only thing. That's the only signing I've seen where I'm like, what are we doing? Like, New York made the most sense for me for him, but
Yeah. That was phenomenal. What the reasoning? I mean, the only reason I could see it, like, who wants to go play with Tua? But he's just like, nah, I just never want to leave home. I just want to be able to drive back home every single day.
I actually envision that scenario playing out just like the Antonio Brown that I tweeted about earlier.
Oh
When
shit.
Antonio Brown didn't want to go to Buffalo because he didn't think Josh Allen was good. And so he went to go play with Derek Carr, but not really instead.
he was out before Hard Knocks was done filming.
I mean, who even knows? I mean, hopefully Tyreek Hill doesn't, screw up his foot by going into a man, that whole summer was ridiculously hilarious looking back.
It
His
was
foot was like
phenomenal.
frozen and then he went crazy. I forgot
Yeah.
about that. That's probably one of the more fun off seasons actually.
Antonio Brown is just such a character. The guy deserves a reality TV series. I think
You
he
know,
would get.
you know what's even crazier with that whole Antonio Brown story? This is a real life bet that I did. My friend bet me after he got cut from the Raiders. We had a real life bet, and it was in the preseason. He goes, I'm gonna bet you that AJ Green scores more fantasy points than Antonio Brown. And
Oh,
I literally won the bet. I won because we always do a bet for like lunch on our redraft, and I won the bet strictly because AJ Green never decided to come back from injury, and Antonio Brown played that one single game in New England.
yep. I think he scored 2 touchdowns in that game or
Yeah,
some shit.
and I sold him actually in my league for 2 firsts after that first game, 2 hours before the report broke that he had done what he was, you know,
I was gonna say that must have been really quick. You must have been not even done with the full season. You just
it was
not
it
the
was
full week.
it was during the game. I was like, I want to get rid of him fast. And my co-manager was like, why? He's gonna be a stud. I'm like, I just want him gone. I have like a sixth sense, my friends will tell me. Like, I know when to trade players. It tends to work out for me. Maybe it's luck and I'll pay for it, but it tends to work out when I do stuff.
That's phenomenal. You're like, I'm gonna take the points and give this guy fucking Antonio Brown, take a second and a third.
It turned
Yeah, he
into
can have him.
Antonio Brown turned into Jonathan Taylor for me. Best trade of my.
Oh, so did you get a first for it, a back end first?
I got 2 1s and it ended up being the 101.
And that guy didn't call fleecing after that report came.
The guy I sold him to, I know him very well. He is my brother.
Ah,
It was not. I mean, he was a Patriots fan. I always sell players. Know your league. That's how you get deals done. Know your league mates.
yeah. There's not very many Patriots players I want to draft anymore, but I could see why he would have a fandom for Antonio Brown. He did
And
look good in that one game. He did look great in that one game with Bill Belichick. I think Antonio Brown Patriots jerseys are a rare thing nowadays. I don't think they even came off the printing press.
yeah, they're kind of like TO jerseys in Buffalo. The only jersey I've ever owned.
Is that right? A TO jersey? Wow.
First and last. I'm not a big jersey guy.
Nah. All right, guys. Well, that is our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, we are on Saturdays, 9 a.m. on Belly Up TV, and you can find us at Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Hope you enjoyed and have